I'd like to welcome to the stage the Chief Sustainability Officer for Delta Airlines, Amelia DeLuca.
Not long ago, I spoke at another airline's hub city. And I started the conversation, as I often do, where I said, "Who here loves Delta?" And no one raised their hands. And then it really went downhill from there. And so I am hoping you all will help me and start by raising your hands if you love Delta. Okay, thank you. We're already off to a good start, which is great. It might get a little harder from here. Who here knows what SAF is? Okay, good. All right, we're doing great. And who here loves SAF as much as I do? Okay, great. Thank you, thank you. Christoph Beck, the CEO of Ecolab, is also in the back with 2 hands up because he is a big champion. The Lieutenant Governor, Governor Walz, everyone in this state, in this room, is a champion of SAF. And so I want to tell you what we've been doing, because I was here last year talking about our intent and our passion and our desires. And now let's talk about the doing part of it, because that's the part that matters. We can go, and I do go, all over the world to talk about SAF, but frankly, that got a little bit monotonous after a while, where I was saying the same things about the challenges, and everyone was nodding their heads, but no one was doing anything about it. Until Delta showed up a couple years ago and said, "We need some help, Minnesota," and you all said, "We got you." So the Minnesota Sustainable Aviation Fuel Hub, or SAF, you're gonna hear me say SAF a lot going forward, was created with a clear purpose: to build a world-class SAF value chain right here in Minnesota. And just to be clear, I do not live here anymore, unfortunately, but I did start my career here 19 years ago. So this is very near and dear to my heart, not just because I love SAF, but because I really believe in that all things can be possible here. Our goal is to deliver affordable, low-carbon SAF to the Minneapolis airport as soon as possible. And hey, guess what? We did that this last year, and I'm excited to tell you more. So why does this matter? Well, you all raised your hands and you said you love Delta, which means you all love air travel. And I get that. And by the way, did you know this summer you can fly direct from Minneapolis to Copenhagen and Rome for the first time ever? That's right. But I also know that we all care about the Earth, and we care about generations to come. And so with that, we want to decarbonize the things that we hold near and dear to our hearts. And the problem with air travel is you cannot put a battery on an airplane that's going to get you anywhere that you really want to go. And so the answer is sustainable aviation fuel. It's actually kind of a miracle in the sense that this fuel looks identical and can look identical to jet fuel. It's a liquid drop-in fuel. It can go into the infrastructure we have today. It's brilliant, but hey, it's also kind of hard. Oh, and it can reduce carbon emissions 80%. And let me tell you what this has to do with Minnesota, though. And again, if you were here last year, you know some of this. Minnesota created the Honeycrisp apple, which is pretty incredible. You guys have great things that come from your universities and come from the land. Some of those things can be made into sustainable aviation fuel, such as corn, soybeans, cover crops, camelina, we'll come back to that, forestry residue, municipal waste, things you never want to think about, but municipal waste can be turned into SAF, and even clean hydrogen. And so all of that's here in Minnesota. It can be taken from the land, it can be produced here, and then Delta would be more than happy to uplift it, and I know you, our customers, would be happy to have it on the plane. But here's the challenge. Right now, there isn't enough sustainable aviation fuel produced worldwide to fuel commercial airlines for even a week. And partially that's because it's so expensive. And so that's why we partnered with Greater MSP and other iconic companies such as Ecolab, Xcel Energy, Bank of America to launch the Minnesota SAF Hub. With other parts of the country and the world are thinking of this in PowerPoints and whiteboards, as I said, you all rolled up your sleeves and you said, we're gonna do this. So let's start with what we've done in the last year. We've committed to build the infrastructure, and that infrastructure is being built right now. Flint Hills Resources is constructing a blending facility at its Pine Bend refinery where SAF will be mixed with conventional jet fuel on site and operational this year. So you will see, towards the end of this year, if you travel on Delta, you will see a paper cup that I'm really excited about. It's truly paper. It's not waterline. No one else has a paper cup the way we do. You will see that on your plane. I have all of sustainability, so I have to make my pitch for that. But what you won't see is the fact that you are flying on a lower emissions footprint because of the sustainable aviation fuel that's being used in that airplane. We've also locked in real demand. I mentioned it's really expensive, and our goal is to try to protect our consumers because we also believe that air travel should be affordable. And so we've been incredibly proud and excited to have companies such as Delta, Airbus, Bank of America, Deloitte, and Ecolab committing to purchasing 15 million gallons of SAF annually starting later this year. That's huge and has never been done before. And those players stepped up to the plate and said, we're going to do this, and not just once, we're going to do it year after year after year because we believe in this. And then I got to come back to probably what was one of my proudest moments. We had talked about this theory with the University of Minnesota about camelina being part of the answer. And if you don't know, camelina is a winter cover crop. And so it's got a really low carbon intensity score because you're not talking about any kind of land use anywhere else. We had talked about the theory of this, and then we did it. So in September, the first sustainable aviation fuel made from winter camelina that was grown in Minnesota arrived at the Minneapolis airport and was dropped into our existing fuel supply. Can I get a round of applause for that? This is truly remarkable, had never been done before anywhere in the world, and it was, again, Minnesota-grown crops. We appreciate the partnership there. And of course, when I'm talking about partners, I would be remiss if I did not mention Governor Walz, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, and the entire Minnesota legislature in a bipartisan manner, which we all know is a little challenging right now, has passed the nation's leading SAF tax credits in 2023 and are again working this session to keep Minnesota at the forefront of this endeavor. I basically go all over the United States and say, can you please just do what Minnesota did? Because Minnesota is the only one that's managed to get it right so far, and that's why we're seeing the progress made here in the state. And so many thanks to the governor and the entire administrative team for that. And so the world is watching, and not just in the United States, Europe, Canada, Brazil, and we were recently recognized at Davos as well. So if you were here last year, you know I like to end with a couple takeaways. So what did we learn today? We still love Delta. We did this last year. And if you didn't raise your hand at the beginning because you didn't know what SAF was or you didn't love SAF, I'm hoping by now you'll join me in saying that you are a SAF lover just as much as I am, and again, Christoph Beck. But the whole point that I want to make here is that SAF is now a commercial reality at Minneapolis. You will see that by the end of this year where SAF will be regularly flowing through that airport. Second, we're bringing SAF production home to Minnesota. We don't just want it to be grown from the crops. We don't just want it flying out of its airport. We want it produced here because that's where the economic benefits come in. We are currently working with more than a dozen potential producers to build SAF facilities here. So hopefully by the end of this decade, you will start to see SAF made in Minnesota as well. And then, of course, we love exploring the art of the possible here in Minnesota. And so there's certain things like woody residue or wood waste that can be turned into SAF. You heard me talk about municipal waste. All of those things are on the table as we look to scaling it here in the future. And of course, we all love camelina, so I think there's more to come on that. So I want to end with this, though. We need your help. The Minnesota SAF Hub is a team of doers and builders, and we're making this happen right now. And we would love for you to join us. I cannot guarantee it will get you to the front of the line at the Sky Club. Actually, it will not. Sorry about that. Someday the lines will be lessened. But in the meantime, we still want your help, and we hope that you'll join us. This is a true win-win. It's good for Minnesota, it's good for the planet, it's good for all of you when you travel, it's good for generations to come, it's good for farmers, and the list goes on and on. So I will end with a quote, and this is interesting. I was going to use this quote just because I use her quotes frequently. Amelia Earhart, who was a pioneer of this, and as Delta celebrates its 100-year centennial this year, I just thought Amelia Earhart felt appropriate. But I actually didn't know, and maybe you all did, that she actually lived here for a while. So Amelia Earhart also has a connection to Minnesota, and I love this quote. She says, "The most effective way to do it is to do it." And so thank you, Minnesota, for being part of our doing it. Thank you.